Please give us this sympathy money. We have Angel Reese. She's star. Dozens of people bought tickets last year to witness her mythical streak of double-doubles. We promise to pay you back within the next 200 or 300 years.
Angel Reese walked into the league with millions of followers, viral moments, red carpet buzz, and then something crazy happened. The banks took one look at all that hype and slammed the door shut. Rejected. No loan, no trust, not a single dollar. The Chicago Sky pitched a $38 million dream, and every investor said hard pass. Why? Because behind the glitz is a brutal truth no one wants to admit, and trust me, it only gets wilder from here. Let's talk about what Forbes wants you to believe. They're out here pushing this whole narrative that Angel Reese is the fuel behind the WNBA's growth. They claim she's the new face of the league. They point to Instagram numbers, red carpet appearances, and press conferences. All the glitz, all the glamour. But here's where it gets real. Financial institutions, the ones who make decisions based on cold hard cash, not magazine covers, weren't impressed at all. They saw the exact same pitch deck the Sky executives proudly presented. They reviewed all those presentations filled with social media impressions and follower counts. And what did they say? No thanks. Not one bank was willing to give them a dime, and that speaks louder than any social post ever could. These aren't emotional decisions, these are calculated financial assessments from people whose entire job revolves around identifying profitable investments, and they took one look at the Angel Reese business model and said, "We're out." That verdict tells us more about the real value of the Chicago Sky than all the media coverage combined. Because when it comes down to it, banks don't care about your viral moments or your Instagram aesthetic. They care about return on investment, and apparently, Angel Reese's star power doesn't translate to the bottom line. The rejection wasn't quiet either. It was so bad, the team had to pivot completely from private funding to begging for public money. That's not a minor setback, that's a complete financial collapse. Here's something the highlight reels don't show you. The Chicago Sky, yes, a professional WNBA franchise with supposed superstar Angel Reese, are holding practices in YMCA gyms. Let that sink in for a second. We're not talking about some temporary arrangements during renovations. This is their everyday reality. Professional athletes at the supposed highest level of women's basketball share court space with local kids, youth leagues, and random pickup games. No dedicated locker rooms, no specialized recovery equipment, no consistency in their training environment. Sometimes they're even forced to hide their practice locations because they're embarrassed about the conditions. There are days when the Sky has to reschedule or relocate because a community event has priority booking. Professional athletes are waiting for a youth league to clear the court before they can practice. That's not just inconvenient, it's humiliating. When most people hear professional sports team, they assume basic standards are met. Private facilities, dedicated resources, the fundamentals of athletic development, but the Chicago Sky are operating more like a high school team without a gym than a professional franchise. This situation isn't just unprofessional, it's a competitive disadvantage. How can athletes perform at their peak when their training environment changes daily? How can a team build chemistry when they're constantly adjusting to new surroundings? The answer is simple. They can't. And if you've watched the Chicago Sky play recently, it shows. Their inconsistency on the court mirrors their inconsistency off of it. This isn't a coincidence, it's cause and effect. So what do you often do when your team is practicing next to toddlers? You build your own state-of-the-art facility, or at least that's what the Sky planned. The blueprint was impressive, a 40,000 square foot custom facility designed specifically for WNBA performance. Private courts, recovery rooms, team offices, player lounges, the works. Everything was ready to go. They had the designs completed, the location was picked out in Bedford Park, groundbreaking was scheduled for this fall, completion date set for December 2025. But what didn't they have? The money. Just a $38 million gap stands between their PowerPoint dreams and actual construction. But that's okay, right? The WNBA always figures something out. They've been operating on hope and promises for years, so why stop now? So the Sky executives walked into those bank meetings with confidence. They brought their presentations filled with Angel Reese highlights, social media statistics, and growth projections. They talked about influence, about reach, about cultural impact. And then reality hit hard. Banks didn't see Angel Reese as the golden ticket the media had portrayed her to be. They weren't impressed by follower counts or engagement rates. They wanted to see revenue projections that made sense, attendance figures that justified the investment, and a clear path to profitability. None of that materialized, and so neither did the money. And now, the Sky are left with fancy renderings of a building that exists only in digital form, while their players continue shooting hoops alongside recreational league members. Let's be clear about something. $38 million in professional sports is basically pocket change. Individual NBA players earn that in 2 seasons. Teams spend more than that on bench players who barely see court time. So when banks refuse to loan $38 million to a professional sports franchise in America's 3rd largest city, that's not just a red flag, that's a 5-alarm fire with sirens blaring. What happened in those meetings? The banks did what banks do. They analyzed actual performance metrics, ticket sales, mediocre, TV ratings, unimpressive, merchandise revenue, minimal. Angel Reese's mythical streak of double-doubles looked good on paper, but it wasn't translating to financial success. Her name wasn't filling arenas, her image wasn't guaranteeing revenues. All those social media followers weren't showing up with their wallets open, and banks noticed right away. Financial institutions don't deal in potential. They don't loan money based on what might happen if everything goes perfectly. They look at past performance and reliable indicators of future revenue, and whatever they saw in the Chicago Sky's financials made them take a hard pass. This rejection wasn't personal, it was mathematical. The numbers simply didn't add up. All the hype, all the media coverage, all the Instagram followers in the world couldn't change the basic financial reality. The Chicago Sky with Angel Reese as their centerpiece weren't a good investment. And that verdict carries more weight than 1,000 hot takes or viral videos. Unlike sports commentators or social media influencers, banks have skin in the game. They're putting actual money on the line, and they weren't willing to bet on Angel Reese. After getting doors slammed in their faces by every financial institution they approached, the Chicago Sky made a desperate move. They turned to the village of Bedrock Park, not even the city of Chicago, but a small village, and begged for interest-free public funding. Yep, you heard that right. After private institutions with financial expertise deemed them unworthy of investment, they asked taxpayers to foot the entire $38 million bill, and not just foot it, they wanted it interest-free. Zero return for the public on their investment. This timeline tells the story of a franchise in free fall. Originally, construction was set to begin in the fall of 2024 with completion by October 2025. And then it changed to April 2026. And now, even that looks like pure fantasy. At a December 12th meeting with Bedrock Park officials, the truth came out. The team was struggling to secure any kind of financing from private sources. This wasn't just a minor setback or a strategic pivot. This was full-blown financial desperation. When a professional sports franchise has to turn to a small village for a bailout, something is fundamentally broken with their business model. This isn't ambitious planning or even vision. This is a Hail Mary pass from a team that's run out of options. And the most revealing part? This all happened during what many consider the peak of women's basketball popularity. The WNBA has never had more media attention, never been more discussed, never had more cultural relevance, and still, with all that momentum, the Chicago Sky couldn't convince a single bank that they were worth the investment. That's not just bad luck, that's a broken business strategy built around the wrong star. While the Chicago Sky were getting rejected by every bank in town, Forbes magazine dropped an amazing article so disconnected from reality that it borders on fiction. The headline basically claimed that Angel Reese, not Caitlin Clark, is the force behind the WNBA's growth. Their evidence? Instagram followers. That's right. Not TV ratings, not arena attendance, not merchandise sales, just social media metrics. According to Forbes, because Angel Reese has more Instagram followers, she must be more influential and valuable to the league. They even went so far as to claim that she's more popular than Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers combined. This is the kind of surface-level analysis that completely misses what actually drives sports economics. Double taps and comment counts don't pay player salaries, follower growth doesn't fund arena leases, and likes don't translate to ticket sales. But you know what does? Actual humans watching games, real people buying tickets, fans that are purchasing merchandise. The harsh reality is that Angel Reese may be everywhere online, but when it comes to putting butts in seats, the metric that actually matters in professional sports, the results tell a different story. Empty sections, unsold tickets, mediocre viewership. And the banks, they saw past the social media smoke and mirrors. They checked the real numbers that matter, and those numbers told them everything they needed to know. Forbes can publish all the articles they want, but financial institutions made their verdict crystal clear when they refused to put money behind the Angel Reese hype machine. Now let's talk real numbers. The Chicago Sky's Arena. Wintrust holds just over 10,000 fans for basketball games, a modest venue by professional sports standards. And yet, with all of Angel Reese's supposed star power, they barely managed to sell 8,700 tickets. That's nearly 1,300 empty seats every game in an already small arena. Now flip the channel to the Indiana Fever with Caitlin Clark. Sold out games, standing room only, television networks are falling over themselves for broadcast rights, a massive spike in jersey sales, unprecedented ratings jumps. When Clark comes to town, arenas sell out regardless of the home team. She's not just bringing fans to Fever games, she's bringing them to every WNBA arena she visits. That's not media spin, that's verifiable data. Angel Reese, despite being labeled the face of the league by certain media outlets, couldn't even fill a 10,000-seat arena. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark transformed one of the league's least relevant franchises into its hottest ticket overnight. The difference is so stark, it's almost embarrassing. Clark brings in viewers who've never watched women's basketball before. She attracts casual fans who suddenly find themselves invested in the WNBA. She converts curious observers into dedicated followers. That's real growth, that's measurable impact, that's bankable star power. And financial institutions know that very well. They see which player is actually moving the needle on the metrics that matter. They recognize which star is generating actual revenue, not just social media buzz. The attendance gap between Reese and Clark isn't just notable, it's definitive. Here's a reality check that certain media outlets seem to be missing. You can't build a facility with Instagram impressions. You can't pay contractors with follower accounts. You can't submit social media engagement metrics on a loan application and expect anyone to take you seriously. The Chicago Sky and Forbes want everyone to believe that Angel Reese's online presence translates to real-world value. But when it came time to back that claim with actual business results, the facade immediately crumbled. Banks aren't interested in how many people double-tap your selfies. They care about revenue streams, season ticket sales, broadcast deals, merchandise movement, corporate sponsorships, the things that actually generate money. And on those fronts, Angel Reese's impact has been underwhelming, to put it kindly. Let's be real. Having millions of followers is impressive in its own right. Building a personal brand takes work, but in professional sports, the only brand that ultimately matters is the one that fills arenas and drives viewership. Everything else is just noise. The Chicago Sky built their entire pitch around that noise. They showed banks the social media engagement, the press coverage, and the viral moments. What they couldn't show was how any of that translated to sustainable revenue growth. And that's why they failed. Not because banks don't understand social media, not because financial institutions are out of touch, but because they understand exactly what matters in business. Angel Reese's influence simply doesn't convert to the bottom line. That truth is harsh but undeniable. Angel Reese's hype train has no engine. It looks impressive from the outside, but there's nothing driving it forward in terms of actual financial performance. Let's be clear about something. We're not trying to hate on Angel Reese. She's talented, she's marketable, she's built an impressive personal brand, but this is about being honest about who's actually driving growth in women's basketball. If you're building the future of a league, you need stars who bring in measurable results. Not just headlines, not just algorithms. You need players who convert hype into seats, screens, and sales. The WNBA is growing right now, that's undeniable, but it's not growing because of social media noise or contrived rivalries. It's growing because people who never watched women's basketball before are tuning in, and they're tuning in primarily for one player, Caitlin Clark. Before Clark arrived, the WNBA was barely mentioned on major sports networks. Now, they're breaking viewership records weekly. The entire conversation around women's basketball has fundamentally changed. That's not a coincidence, it's not a collective effort, it's the impact of a singular talent who transcends the sport and brings new audiences with her. Financial institutions see this clearly. They analyze trends, they follow the money, and when the Chicago Sky came to them with a business plan centered around Angel Reese rather than acknowledging the Clark effect, they recognized it for what it was: misguided. No article, no social media post, no carefully crafted narrative can change what the banks already said loud and clear with their rejection. We're not buying it. The future of women's basketball is bright, but only if the league embraces reality rather than manufactured narratives. The numbers don't lie, the empty seats don't lie, and the loan rejections certainly do not lie. Now here's the big question for all you watching. Who's really running the show in the WNBA? The media has their favorites, the money follows the headlines, but what do you see? Are you buying into the hype, or are you seeing through the smoke? Is Caitlin Clark being lifted or being pushed out? Let me know where you stand on this in the comments down below. I want to hear your honest take, raw and real, just like this story. And hey, if you want more sharp, no-fluff basketball breakdowns, go ahead and smash that subscribe button right now. We've got way more coming your way, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. And speaking of being disrespected, what if I told you that Steph Curry, the man who changed the game of basketball forever, is still not getting the respect that he deserves? Yep, it's worse than you think. Click here to watch for yourself.